guess looking at your work, both as an institution builder, as a historian, as a supervisor, um, once again, I think we may find its roots in your earlier exposure, but it has been interdisciplinary in every sense of the term. mm, That you remain located in one discipline, but you are open to other disciplines, and you may borrow their methods, techniques, concepts, approaches, and make them your own for any particular project, for any particular work.
I would like to mention first of all that if we look at the beginnings, origins of disciplines like economics, like sociology, we can go back to the 18th century, but not really further beyond. In ancient times, there was only one discipline that was called history. In order to study human behavior, human action. But by the 18th century, some individuals in Europe, Western Europe, they came to feel that this was not really satisfactory. Politics was not the only activity of human beings. And therefore, if you are interested in some other aspects of human life, history is of no use to you. So you have the beginning of economic study of economics, the sociology in the late 18th century. And this development further led to the emergence of new disciplines. And then scholars found that they are so divided amongst different disciplines that they can get to know only a part of the reality that they wish to know. And they thought of going back to a position where the advantages of all the disciplines could be derived in their research work, in their understanding. So this was the beginning of multidisciplinary approach to problems. I recall that I have seen seminars in which one single theme was given, but scholars were invited from different disciplines, sociology, history, psychology, economics, in order to focus on the same problem, so that you have the views or the understanding of more than one scholar on the same theme, on the same subject, which enriches our understanding, improves our understanding. So this was multidisciplinary approach, which is still there, and which can be encouraged. But interdisciplinary is, I think, a little more complicated, a little more subtle. There you have the approach in which one single scholar is combining the concerns and methods of different disciplines in order to pursue a particular theme or subject. So that is rather difficult to pursue, but then the ideal is worthwhile because if the scope of historical studies has expanded, it is no longer past politics. You have other aspects of human life which you wish to study, then you cannot do it with your old methods, nor with your old sources. So the basic problem before the historian is that there are sources for a particular kind of problem, and there is a question of interpretation. And in order to interpret, you can make use of the methods of various disciplines if you happen to know them, to combine them in any way you find it useful. So interdisciplinary approach obviously, to my mind, produces better results because the same source is seen from different angles and the same kind of evidence is seen from different angles in order to form a view of any particular situation or any particular problem that we wish to study.
Which particular disciplines have you been open to in your own research?
In my research, it would vary from subject to subject. If I'm talking of literature, then obviously literature is the area which is added to my interest in history. If I'm studying gender, then I would be interested in sociology. Geography is always helpful to you. The question where is important in history, and it's good to remember that. And I find sometimes it is very helpful, useful to keep the space in mind. Where are the things that are happening, and are those in any way related to one another? So the space element is a part of historical thinking. The question when is very important, but where is also.
Particular work on a study of Guru Granth Sahib that you published in 2009, doctrine, social content, history, structure and status.
Right.
How is it distinct from other such works on the Sikh scripture, where the imprint of the historian is particularly evident?
You may have books with this title, but not the subtitle.
Okay.
The doctrine would be there in any study, but they're not social awareness.
Social awareness on the part of the gurus.
On the part of the gurus. And in the Granth Sahib itself. So this I think is a very important feature of the Granth Sahib. That there is a lot of talk about social matters and political matters. And there are views on politics, there are views on society. We were just talking of gender relations, caste. So you have the original evidence in Sikh history on these areas, problems in the Granth Sahib itself.
Do you notice any particular emphasis on social commitment and its...
This is part of Sikh ideology in Guru Nanak. In the first place, he chooses the life of a householder over the life of a renunciate, which is important to him. And this is a form of social commitment. The social commitment eventually would include politics. But that is not absolutely new in the sense that Guru Nanak himself, as I said earlier also, was very much preoccupied with politics. He has a comment to make, a longish comment to make on political events, in which briefly he would talk of the bloodshed involved, he would talk of the rape involved, he would talk of the murder of innocent people. These are the aspects which he did not like, which he denounced, and therefore any battle, war of this kind would be denounced. But there are historians who have drawn the conclusion that he was a pacifist, he was against violence, which is not true. Even in these compositions he says that if there is a fight between equals, it's okay. But when a strong party is simply murdering the weaker, this is not done. Or elsewhere he would appreciate the warrior as a category who are true and who
True to their profession.
true to their profession, and on the basis of that, their end is good in the sense that they would attain to liberation.
Right.
And this would be the ideal then of the Singhs of Guru Gobind Singh to fight in a righteous cause.
Right.
And death in righteous cause is the basis of liberation. So there is a continuity and change, simultaneously continuity and change of this kind. In Sikh history as in other histories.
What do you have to say about the idea of distinctive Sikh identity, especially the thrust of this particular work, 4 centuries of Sikh tradition, history, literature and identity, which is the main title, and then over the 4 centuries. So how you have treated the question of distinctive Sikh identity in this particular work?
I would put it this way, that I noticed a controversy among scholars, among historians, about the late 19th century socio-religious resurgence in which the question of identity was important. So what I found was that most of the scholars, most of the historians believed that the question of Sikh identity was raised for the first time during the late 19th century and never before. In this connection, I read Karmjit Malhotra's Hum Hindu Nahi. And I discovered that his argument is that this issue has been raised by others. Hum Hindu Nahi is my answer to those people who are asserting that Sikhs are Hindus. This question was never raised before and therefore never answered before. It has been raised now and therefore I am answering this. And his answer is very interesting. He says, if Hindu means an Indian, which was the meaning of this term originally, then we are Hindus. If it means that we subscribe to temple worship, we subscribe to particular gods, people called Hindus, we are not Hindus. This argument appealed to me. This was reasonable. This was a rational sort of argument. And in addition to that, he went back to Sikh literature in order to produce evidence that this identity has been there from the very beginning. Now, this may be a simplified version of the situation, and therefore I kept this question in mind. Reading the Granth, reading Bhai Gurdas, reading any Sikh work, I kept in mind the question of identity. Is there any awareness of this kind? If it is, what it is? So what is absolutely certain and clear is that this was not really the product of the late 19th century. Sometimes the question was raised earlier, even if it was not raised, the statement was made by the Sikh writers and Sikh leaders on their identity, so much so that the term Tisar Panth, the third Panth, the other two being Muslim and Hindu, was used in the early 18th century. Bhai Gurdas, who is writing in the early 17th, late 16th, early 17th, does not use the word the Tisar Panth. He uses the word Nirmal Panth, but his assumption is the same, that the Sikh Panth is distinct and different from Hindu and Muslim.
Did Guru Nanak himself establish the Panth, or it came into existence after him?
Guru Nanak's position is very interesting. Harjot Obrai, for instance, emphasized that the word Sikh doesn't occur in the body of Guru Nanak. This is not true. The word Sikh occurs in two senses. One, Sikh, that is teaching, instruction, injunction, and elementary
Shiksha
teaching.
in this, the same root as.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Sikh in the sense of a disciple, a follower.
Shishya.
Sikh of the Guru would be the common term used. And this also gives a clue to the situation that the word Sikh was commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
It was used for any follower, any disciple.
Mm-hmm.
The follower of A, follower of B, follower of B, so that one could ask, Kiske Sikh ho? Who Sikh are you?
Mm-hmm.
So recently I have read, I was going through this Puratan Janam Sakhi.
Janam Sakhi is the.
This relates to the life of Guru Nanak, episodes from his life or his life itself, the earliest work on Guru Nanak's life
Mm-hmm.
in terms of his biography.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in several situations, he's talking about the people, not Sikhs of the Guru, but Sikh of A, Sikh of B, Sikh of D, so that the usage was in general. Sikh was used for a follower, for a disciple,
Mm-hmm.
literally for a student perhaps, but that meaning was overshadowed.
Right.
And in the 15th, 16th century, it was used in the sense of a follower, a disciple.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sikh of the Guru makes sense that now we are talking of these people, not other people, not other Sikhs of other persons, but Sikhs of the Guru.
Mm-hmm.
This is the term used by in Dabistan. Dabistan is a Persian work written by a Parsi on the contemporary religions,
Mm-hmm.
including Sikhism, and he's talking about Guru Nanak and his successors till the time of Guru Hargobind, whom he knew personally.
That is in the 1640s.
1640s, he completed his work in the early 50s, 1650s.
Okay.
Dabistani Mazahib, which is a description of several religions, including Sikhism.
Mm-hmm.
So your work, The Sikhs of the Punjab, is considered as a classic by the readers.
That's very good.
And you have placed it in a larger context of Punjab and Indian history, and it is regarded as a reference book. Through your work, do you think you have tried to bridge a gap between the professional historians and the traditional scholars?
Not really, but I tried to. In the 80s, there was a lot of controversy in Sikh studies, dividing what is called the Sikh scholars, the traditional scholars, or who subscribe to that methodology and worldview, and the professional historians, who were earlier called Western, but by now this distinction is not there. There is a method, historical method, anyone can use that in one's study and therefore become a professional historian. So it occurred to me that there should be a dialogue, not really that one party is attacking the other and the other is answering and not coming to any compromise or any understanding or any agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So with that idea, I wrote the contesting interpretation of the Sikh tradition, trying to project the positions adopted by what is called Sikh scholars, Sikh writers. What are their objections to the work being done by the historians, professional historians, and what is the position of the professional historians themselves, so that they could come to a common platform if possible and thrash out the differences and move forward. But this did not happen. The grooves became deeper and deeper, so by now both the parties claim that they have won.
Mm-hmm.
The Sikh writers believe that they have settled the scores with all historians, professional historians for all times to come,
Mm-hmm.
and they are pursuing precisely those themes and those ideas which were there in the 80s on their side. The professional historians, on the other hand, think that they have met the attack successfully, and there is nothing really serious about the traditional writers and their criticism, so we have to do nothing and go ahead with our own program. There is a exception to this, I would say. During the present decade, there are a few scholars, at least one I know, who thinks that Hugh MacLeod's work is not adequate, it has limitations, but it does not mean that we remain preoccupied with him. We should go ahead. And when he says we should go ahead, he is not talking of the traditional historians. He is talking of the professional historians, that it is possible for them to ignore both these parties and move ahead with their own research. And he suggests how this research can be pursued. So this is a new sign in a way. And my name also figures there in the second category. The first category is of historians who believe that nothing seriously is wrong with MacLeod, and you can pursue that by modifying a little and go ahead. So the author doesn't approve of this. He says this is not really possible. They are mistaken about it. Then he gives this my name that he has his own interpretation after he has pointed out the limitations of MacLeod. But then he is not moving ahead with the program which is possible and which can be done only with the help of primary sources on a large scale. So this he has, and therefore he would like to do that. At least he is suggesting that his proposal is that the life of Guru Nanak, the compositions of Guru Nanak, and the earliest manuscripts, they should be studied, sort of integrated, in order to get results. So I think it makes a lot of sense, but there is a lot of optimism also that the form of literature called Janam Sakhi would answer all questions about Guru Nanak. I don't think this is really true, because the interest of the Janam Sakhi compilers, writers, was not very wide. It was limited to a few questions about the life of Guru Nanak and his teachings.
So, what is your conceptualization of Sikh history?
Study of Sikh history, like any other subject, it's not different from studying any other subject of historical significance.
I mean, the hallmarks of your methodology or approach will remain the same, that you are close to evidence, humanistic in your approach, rational, secular, liberal, open-minded. Would you say?
This would apply perhaps more to what I write on Sikh history, because I have to write very carefully, keeping in view the sensitivities of people around.
Right.
Not everyone, but some of them. And also, I personally have a very high opinion of the kind of movement that we have here. There are certain values which I think were very important. We were talking of equality, that is one. But even more important in a way is the idea of paropkar. That is, you do things for others. We were talking by Gurdas. He says it very explicitly that that is the Sikh Panth is different from others. In the sense, one sense, that whereas others do everything for themselves, we do things for others as well. It's not for Sikhs alone. but any human being, a Sikh should help another human being in any way he can.